Mercy. Please. Please.
There is no mercy.
Oh God, here we go. The folks at Indian are about to find out why I have such an interesting relationship with Harley Davidson, because despite how much I really love Harley, I am one of their most loud and vocal critics, because I always feel like I can see a bunch of unrealized potential in the brand. And boy, oh boy, do I feel like I'm seeing a lot of potential just being squandered right out of the gate. Because by now I have a feeling a lot of people have heard about that Ride Apart article that basically was the Indian CEO saying, yeah, no, sorry, if you want a beginner bike, we ain't your brand. Now it's worth pointing out that before any of this happened, I finally got an opportunity to ride an Indian Sport Chief RT, and that video is coming out. There's actually a version of it. The first ride is available for members. If you wanted to check that out super early, you can. But the full review is coming out, I think next week, maybe week after next. And that motorcycle was amazing. It had me so excited about the future of what Indian was going to do. And then this ended up happening and this ended up coming out, and oh boy. I feel like Indian is gearing up to speedrun every single one of Harley Davidson's mistakes from certainly the last 10 years, maybe the last 20. Now, if you haven't read the article, I highly encourage you to check it out. I will have it linked down in the description below. There's a lot of context there that is going to help illuminate some of these quotes, but there's also some missing context, I think, in that article that both softens the blow somewhat and just makes it even worse in equal measure. So a little bit of background here. Mike Kennedy, the CEO of Indian Motorcycle, who's a 26-year Harley-Davidson veteran, which is gonna be relevant later. He also did a stint at Vance & Hines and Rumble On and a few other places. He sat down with a bunch of members of the motorcycle media on a Zoom call. I was actually invited to this, but I couldn't make it because of scheduling conflicts. Jonathan Klein of Ride Apart asked Mike whether or not there was any interest from Indian in bringing out a $6,000-ish smaller displacement beginner motorcycle, because those are the ones that we've seen a lot of interest in. It's a massively growing segment, and they're selling a lot of bikes right now because people can't just run out and buy a $20,000 cruiser. Now, this wasn't a direct response, but this is a quote directly from the CEO as to whether or not we're going to see one of those motorcycles from Indian. The answer to are we working on a $5,000, $6,000 motorcycle, the answer is no. The reason why the answer is no is because we see significant upside for our company in middle and heavyweight cruisers. Now I want to jump to a quote directly from him that's in the article. So in 2025, the US marketplace on highway motorcycles down 6.5%. Indian's market share grew. It grew in touring, it grew in cruisers, and by the way, there's a ton of market share left to be gained, right? And he's absolutely right there, because as I experienced when I rode the Indian Sport Chief RT, that is just simply a better motorcycle than the Lowrider ST. And I'm sorry, Harley guys, but we just have to take our licks when it's appropriate, and that is just a better motorcycle. And so when I analyze the market, it's not a factual statement to say that only the $6,000 bikes are the ones that are selling. That's just not true. And again, we have a bike that sells for $10,000, which is a very accessible motorcycle. He said under $10,000, but it's a $10,000 motorcycle. So we're gonna break that down into two pieces here. First and foremost, when Jonathan asked about this, he wasn't saying that only the $6,000 motorcycles sell. That is a mischaracterization by the CEO of what the question was. It's basically just that $6,000 category is a great way to get people into the brand, right? Think of the MT-03, the MT-07, the MT-09, and the MT-10. It creates this perfect linear pathway to stay within the motorcycling industry. We've seen this from the Big Four for so long, and Harley Davidson used to do it with the approachable Iron 883. Then you could move up to your Dyna, then you move up to the bigger bikes, or you stick with the Dyna because the Dyna is better. Nowadays, you do have the Nightster 975, and then you have the Softails, and then the big bikes, and you have the similar thing going on with Indian, with the Scout and the Chief platform, and then the big bikes. The only problem with that is that both the Sportster and the Scout are bad beginner bikes, not just because of the price point. They're a little too fast, and I was thinking about starting on a Scout 60. I'm kind of glad I didn't, because that is too much power for a beginner. Then he added, and this is if I were in the marketing team, I'd be banging my head off the desk when he said this. And by the way, one thing that we don't talk about a lot as an OEM, we don't talk a lot about it, but the pre-owned product is a great gateway for riders into the brand. Dude, no. Because price is not the only problem. And he's aware of this because he brought up an anecdote with his own daughter. We're not going to be that entry-level motorcycle because of size, right? I have a daughter and she's a nurse. She has a motorcycle license. She sat on my 101 Scout the other day, and she's a small-framed human being, right? And she can ride a motorcycle, but there's no way she's gonna be riding that 101 Scout. It's way too much physical of a motorcycle for her. So we're not the answer for her, unfortunately. So he's just entirely okay writing off that entire segment of riders. So I didn't say this in the garage, but it's very important context. He specifically said that he sees that segment as a distraction for the company. So not only is he writing off that whole segment is a distraction.
If I could do everything under the sun, would I want a $6,000 bike that's smaller built frame on a 650 or a 750 more? Of course I would, absolutely. But that will be a distraction for this company in this context.
That's not good. So then what's his answer to bringing new people in? Well, he sees Indian as an aspirational brand. Those are his words, and I think anybody who uses those words about their brand probably hasn't deserved that aspirational tag yet. I've talked to the CEO of Ducati USA, and he doesn't say we're an aspirational brand. They just know it. They don't have to tell people. So anyway, Mike's solution is, and one of the things that the Carrollwood team, we'll talk about that in a second, the Carrollwood team is really excited about is on the apparel and licensing front. What things can we do to keep the brand aspirational to a wider audience so that people come in, maybe on other brands or other pre-owned brands, and they're looking at the Indian product line as an aspirational brand? I'm sorry that we don't have a bike that fits you as a beginner. Why don't you take a t-shirt and come back in 5 years when you can afford one of our other motorcycles, and you'll remember us because of that t-shirt, right? You'll aspire to ride an Indian because you saw somebody wearing an Indian t-shirt. Dude, no. And we already have an American t-shirt company that sells motorcycles. I'm sorry, but we don't need another one. And that was one of the things that's so frustrating to me about this whole situation with Indian, is this is a complete own goal because, again, they're following in Harley Davidson's footsteps. And that's on purpose because they specifically see themselves as overtaking Harley Davidson, and those are not my words. Based on the assets we have, we don't think there's a reason why we cannot be the #1 market leader in cruisers, both middle and heavyweight, baggers, touring, and we expect to enter the trike market very soon. That's our goal. They want to be Harley. Now look, we can talk all we want about the 4 pillars of how he thinks we're going to achieve that: the brand, the product, US manufacturing, and dealers. And I admit it's very awesome to see them focusing on building bikes here in the US, but that's expensive, and that means that they're going to be more expensive motorcycles. It's really hard to manufacture a beginner bike at an affordable price point here. So his answer is just, nah, we won't do it. We'll make trikes instead. And this is a bit of an aside, but the technology on these motorcycles, it's just not where it needs to be, especially if you want to throw down against Harley with their really nice infotainment centers and all of that. The Ride Command it feels cheap. It doesn't feel very good. And I know some people love it and some people hate it, but for me, it doesn't make any sense to have to take your hand off to switch modes and stuff. Also, the dashboard itself is really small and it doesn't look all that good. Which provides me a smooth segue into talking about today's sponsor, Chigee. Chigee is a nice addition to any bike with an old dash, or in the Chief's case, one that's not up to snuff. It has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto built in, navigation, dash cams that are always recording, and blind spot monitoring, all through a big crystal clear touchscreen dash. It can also be paired with a handlebar mounted controller so you don't have to take your hands off the bars to touch it while you're riding. It can pull data from your bike when paired with an OBD dongle and monitor tire pressure too. The best part is the AIO6 can be swapped from bike to bike, so if you have multiple bikes in the garage, you'll only need one AIO6. If you're interested, click that link down in the description below and use the code SPITESCORNER for 10% off your order. Now, the question is, why am I so disappointed about this? It's a cruiser company, Spite. You should have seen this coming 1,000 miles away. Everybody who makes cruisers wants to be Harley Davidson, right? Yeah, I guess, but the thing is Indian had the FTR for the longest time, which, by the way, he was very clear that the FTR is not coming back. So if you're holding out hope, you better just let that one go. It's a lot like the Bronx. FTR dead. But Indian is in this really unique position, right? They are now free of Polaris and they can do their own thing and make their own motorcycles and chart their own path. So it's really frustrating to see them just do the bare minimum, and instead of trying to engage a younger rider, get more people into American motorcycling, maybe convert some sport bike guys, their answer is trikes. Like, you're creating senior cycles, man. Like, okay, fine. You're going to be able to sell those. I know you are, and so do your folks at Carrollwood LP. Again, we'll talk about that in a second. But we don't need another $30,000 trike. We just don't. I'd also like to push back on his notion that the $6,000 motorcycle isn't where they need to be, or that it's a distraction. Because another aspirational brand, to use a term I really hate, is Triumph. Triumph is an aspirational brand. People see the speed triples and the street triples, and those are the bikes they want to get after they get their first motorcycle. And Triumph didn't really have a great way for them to get into it. Now with the 660s, and specifically the 400cc motorcycles that they're making, they're allowing people to get into the bikes really cheap, sub $10,000, and for real sub $10,000. $9,999 is 10 grand, which means it's over 10 grand out the dealership. The little 400cc Bonnies, you can get those out the door under 10 grand all day, every day. And now we have to talk about Carrollwood. Carrollwood is the private equity firm that now owns Indian. And whenever somebody hears private equity in this context, they think, oh, they're gonna buy this brand, strip it for parts, make the maximum amount of cash, and damn the consequences. Kennedy has done a lot of legwork to try and put people's minds at ease about the future of Indian not being stripped for parts by Carrollwood. They seem to have this hands-off relationship where they want to let Indian do their thing. But this move, this goal to just be Harley 2.0, Harley but better, feels like they're aiming for the minimum viable product that's going to appease the overseers. Again, they want to sell a bunch of t-shirts, and I think nothing is going to get a private equity frat dude harder, quicker than selling a 75-cent Bangladeshi t-shirt for $75 in an American dealership. That's crude, and I'm sure the folks at Indian would push back on it, but that's just the reality of private equity. There's no way that somebody buys something without wanting a return on the investment. And again, this feels like the easiest way to get a return on that investment. So is it all doom and gloom? I don't think so, but I don't have a lot of confidence for the next 5 years of Indian motorcycle. And the reason why I say that is because most motorcycles take a long time to develop, at least 5 years. Some motorcycles take longer, some happen a lot faster. But if you're looking to see something new and radical from an American motorcycle company within the next few years, you're not gonna see it from Indian Motorcycle. They have told us that already. Which, and I can't believe I'm saying this, puts the pressure back on Harley Davidson to fucking do something. It's like that meme with the stick. Come on, do something. And this is the first time we've seen a real split in terms of what Harley and Indian are doing. They are essentially courting the same core customer. But if Harley Davidson lands that Sprint in the US and it sells, and they can make that line profitable, it proves Mike Kennedy wrong. We'll just have to wait and see. So let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.